All right, we're live. Okay, so 8:14, we'll call the meeting to order. Start by reading our mission statement. Lewis County Economic Development, through its board, the IDA, and its brand, Naturally Lewis, are championing the growth of a community where people want to live, work, build business, and play. We foster forward thinking and relationship building, connecting people, businesses, partnerships, and resources to effectively and efficiently grow our county. The privilege of the floor, we have a few guests, but I think we're going to get to that as the agenda.
I had just a little note I wanted to mention. This about a year ago, some of you listened to a podcast I did. And that fellow is coming to New York, and I've got it set up for him to interview and tour Black River Valley Natural. So I think maybe James will get a little free advertising out of it.
Great.
Kevin, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I understand he introduced himself already.
Well, not everyone was here.
Okay, well, I was allowing Hugo to do it himself because I can't pronounce his last name. He's Hugo Zavilovich. But it's a work in progress. He is an intern in our office for the summer through the Lisa Hetzner's program in the Department of Social Services. I met her at the Economic Development Conference that we put together, and we talked about internship. And the next thing I know, Hugo showed up at my door. So that was a nice connection to have made there. They were looking for places, and we were looking for someone. Hugo has completed his first year at George Washington. Yes. And he is also a proud graduate of Revitalization Academy and Central School. And anything else you want to say? I don't know. Oh, his sister Ruby works at the Chamber of Commerce. You probably met Ruby.
She's an intern with the chamber this summer. Yep.
Right. So,
And Hugo is an excellent guitar player. He played at our downtown drinks and drains event for the DRI.
Oh, wow.
It
Okay.
was awesome. He was great.
Okay.
Man of many talents.
What's your major?
International affairs.
So,
Nice seeing you again.
all right. The minutes from the July meeting were sent out last week. Did everyone have a chance to review them? Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So
Tom, second.
awesome.
Gagan. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Financial reports, Shannon.
All right, profit and loss, just a note, most of our installment of pilot admin fees come in January, February, a little bit into March, April. So we get a bunch of our income at the beginning of the year, and then we always show some losses towards the middle and end of the year. And that's to be expected, just the way our finances flow, so don't be scared by the negative 47,000. It's a little over budget, but we did have 3 payrolls in June, and we incurred most of our expenses for the Shift Back to Rural event in the month of June. We hadn't really recognized all of the revenue from that event yet, so very explainable and nothing that we didn't budget for. We budgeted for that event, so we'll see that when we get kind of back to normal by the end of the year. Any questions on that? Look at the balance sheet. Again, not a ton notable on this report for the month of June. You see cash goes down a little bit. That's incurring a few payrolls and a few expenses for the event without having, those big IDA fee incomes. We will see a few more pilots, at least the solar pilots, once they finally get to closing and signing. We have at least probably $70,000 we'll see there in the next 6 months, if nothing else happens. Any questions on that report? Didn't have a finance committee meeting in the month of June, so, or in the month of July, so we do have the expenditures there, just in case anybody wants to call anything out. Questions or comments on those reports? All right.
Anything there? Motion to approve the June financials. Doug, second, third, sorry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. All right, moving on to items for approval, we have Chris Canada with us.
Morning. Thank you, Joe. So this one, the resolution relating to the release of a certain switchyard, this relates to the number 3 wind project, the large wind project that closed back in December. So it was originally envisioned all along that once the switchyard was completed, switchyard being where the power from the wind turbines goes into the main grid. Once that was completed, that switchyard would be transferred over to National Grid. We've received a request from National Grid letting us know that or from the company rather, that has occurred. The switchyard's ready. So the only thing we need to do is amend the legal description in the lease agreement and the underlying lease, which were previously recorded, to reflect that that switchyard is no longer part of the property being leased and subleased to the IDA. So what this resolution would approve would be to amending the document, or to be approving the transfer of the property and also amending the documents to reflect that transfer. So relatively simple one. Happy to answer any questions on this one.
Any questions for Chris? Any comments on? Seems like the project's moving along. All right, does this require a roll call vote, Chris? Or?
We should, Mr. Chair. Yep.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Darlene, a second. Tom, any discussion? All right, roll call. Goggin,
Yes, present.
Tom,
Yes.
Herb,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Joe, yes, Mackenzie, excused.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And I will say that Nadine prepared a little summary of where the transactions were for the solar projects, and we have 4 currently that I know of, and they're all moving along. She's pushing the company to send us comments on the documents. So she has been working on to get those closed. We would really like to close on those before the end of the year, as I know the IDA would.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we're on it.
Thanks for the
Thanks,
update,
Chris.
appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day. Stay out of the heat.
Yeah,
Yep, you too. Bye.
all right. Moving on to the audit. We have Liz here with us and Janelle by Zoom.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. I'm Liz Bush. I'm the audit partner at Bowers on this audit, and Janelle Cooper, who is attending via Zoom, is the audit manager. So I'm going to go through the audited financial statements and 2 communication letters, and they are in draft form today in case there are any discussion items or need be changes. The IDA has grown significantly over the last few years, so we like to bring drafts here in case anything needs to be, commented on and change any wording. The reason you have the audit is that it's required by the New York State Authority's budget office. It's due at the end of August, so after today, you have plenty of time to finalize this and have it submitted. And then there's a Paris report that Cheyenne works on, and that's submitted, and Brittany too, I'm sure, both between the 2 of you. And that's submitted by the end of August. So those are all the compliance, and the reasons that you have an audit. So if you turn to the first page after the table of contents, it's labeled Independent Auditor's Report. So this report has significantly changed from the prior year. What has happened is our authoritative guidance that we have to follow to issue audited financial statements dictates that we had to make these changes. So what happens here is that the opinion is on the first page. It's not embedded back in pages 2 or 3. And so you can see right away the transparency if you have a clean audit opinion or some sort of modification of that. So I'm pleased to report that you do have a clean, unmodified, unqualified audit opinion on the financial statements this year. And, you know, we based that opinion was, our audit was conducted on auditing standards generally accepted by the United States of America and the government auditing standards. So we're required to be independent of the County of Lewis IDA, which we are. And so we believe, you know, we obtained enough audit evidence to issue this opinion. At the bottom of the page, and this might be a previous draft, it is. So on the paper copies in front of you, we have an emphasis of matter paragraph. And what we did is we recorded a prior period adjustment in note 13. And the reason being is that the more that you're entering in these installment type administrative fees for the pilot agreements, you know, as we're reading through some of the newer agreements, our understanding is now that based on the signing of that agreement, that's a receivable, that's revenue recognized as you enter into that agreement. In the past year, we recorded them as the installments were received. So just an accounting change. So we ended up recording that receivable this year, and you'll see that in the note. On the next page, this has just added more detail. We disclose the responsibility of management for the preparation of the financial statements. That has not changed. Management's responsible for for presenting these fairly and having internal controls in place to ensure that those statements are fairly stated. And then also management is required to disclose if you have any information that is a going concern issue, meaning that you would not be here in the next year. Based on your balance sheet, you do have enough liquidity that you are stable, and there is not a going concern issue. On this page also, the auditor's responsibility, we're still responsible for the same things in the audit, but this report details in much detail what we're responsible for: exercising professional judgment, obtaining an understanding of internal control, evaluating the accounting principles and policies. And then over on the next page, we conclude, whether there's any conditions or events that would make us believe that you have a going concern issue, which you do not. We are also required to have required supplementary information, and what you're going to see that in a minute, that's the management's discussion and analysis. And that is just a synopsis, a condensed version of your financial statements, the current year and the prior year. And then that's an opportunity for management to discuss your current projects, where the IDA is at, and future projects. And then the last paragraph is the other reporting in accordance with government auditing standards. You're required to have an audit performed in accordance with government auditing standards because you have to follow the guidelines of that New York State Authorities Budget Office. So on pages 4 through 12, we do have the management's discussion analysis. I won't go over this. Basically, we provide management with a template of the final numbers. And then in here, it's good reading. They go through all of the information that shows all of your, as I said earlier, your current projects, status of those projects, anything in the future that you should be aware of. So over on page 13, this is the very old one. This is before it was updated. So in the pages are off ones. This was the copy submitted prior to having the management and discussion and analysis updated. So if you're following along in your paper copy, and I think everybody in the room here is, there's nobody attending Zoom except Janelle, and she has the final version. The statement of net position, that would be 12 up there, page 12 on your copy. So, so here's your balance sheet. On the statement of net position, we have for the year total assets of about 5 million. And that's about a $1.3 million increase from last year of about 3.7 million. So the total current assets, where you're seeing the most significant increases in cash. Cash went up about $1 million this year, and that's based on, you know, all of the activity coming through the IDA, you know, your administrative fees coming through, and the fact that your expenses stayed relatively consistent with the previous year. One thing we did add this year is other receivables. You'll see on the balance sheet that we have other receivables, the long-term portion of about 900,000, and then there's a current portion of about 400,000. So that's for the 3 installment administrative fees. You're going to see that in a note in the financial statements, and I have adjustments for Cheyenne to post in the QuickBooks. So that's another reason driving up those total assets to that number. Very small amount of liability, so it brings you down to your net position of just over 5 million. On the next page, the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. That so here you're going to see more increases. Total operating revenues are up just slightly under 1.8 million. Last year they were around 1 million. And again, that's the agency fees. Those are the administrative fees coming into the IDA from those large projects. And then down below under your operating expenses, very consistent with the prior year, you had about $453,000 this year in expenses. You know, your largest expense that you would, you know, anticipate in any organization is your salaries and wages and related benefits. And then, of course, here you have economic development expenses of about 170,000. So further along down the page here on this copy, we do see a loss on the sale of the building. That's the Lionsdale commercial property. You obtained that a couple of years ago. The value that we put that on the books based on an assessed appraised type value. When you actually sold it, it was sold for a lesser amount. So that's why you see the loss on the sale of the building. So you have a change in that net position of 1.2 million, bringing you from the beginning of the year as restated. We did restate that balance to include the receivable in the beginning of the year, 3.7 million up to 5 million.
Just for those in the room who weren't on the front end of that transaction, we didn't get in that property. We just sold it below the value that we've assigned in our books. So that's not a cash loss, that's just a loss.
And that was done through a RFP process where we had taken in proposals for the purchase and development of the property, and we selected the proposal out of the three or four submitted to us. So
yeah. Okay, the next page is a statement of cash flows. So here just shows how your cash increased from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Like I said, it was almost about $1 million. So really it's provided by operations. You have about 878,000 coming in. Most of that is from principal loan collections and your administrative fees. And then of course you have all your payments coming out for your various expenses. So if you're following along in the paper copy, it's going to be page 17 up on the screen. I believe it's going to be page 16. Yes, okay, so it's off one page. So here are the notes to the financial statements. You are required to have notes to your financial statements. There weren't any new significant accounting policies this year. However, next year you will have a new lease standard to implement. And that's going into effect right now for our June 30th year ends. So by the time we get to you next year at May 31, we will have plenty of experience with governmental agencies recording those assets and liabilities. So what it is when you have an operating lease, leasing your building, your office space, we need to record a right of use asset and liability, not a material amount for the agency here, but it is something that will have to be recorded next year. So I'm gonna move forward to page 21, if you're following along here in the room. That would probably be page 20 on the screen then. What we're looking at is note 3, the collateral note. Yep, there you go. So this note is important because this details whether or not you have, you always have FDIC coverage in place for your checking and money market accounts. But also you need to have collateral in place, which you do, so you have enough collateral covering all those deposits at May 31, 2022. And then on the next page, you have a capital asset note, and this just details your capital assets at the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And as Cheyenne pointed out, we did record a disposal on that Lionsdale property, and you can see that that was the assessed, it was really an appraised value for $150,000. That's coming off your capital assets. Again, not a cash loss, but actually just more of a paper entry. So we are reducing your assets by that. Further below on this page, you'll see below you do collect on your one asset of your building and property. You do collect minimum rental values. You'll see that those values are listed there over the next 5 years and thereafter. That's what you expect to collect and rent from that Trinity Avenue property.
So that will pertain to that report that we're going to file next year.
Right. And that, and then also your office space too. Yeah. So these slight changes, this one won't change much because you already record rental revenue and that. So that, I think the changes for you, based on the current guidance we're seeing, will be very minimal. Okay. So on the next page, we have loans receivable, note 5. And here, this is a very lengthy note. This is your loans receivable that you have, for the agency. About 3 years ago, I worked with Brittany and Cheyenne, and we really tweaked this note to provide more information to the reader of the financials. So it's very lengthy. I won't go over it in great detail, but what it encompasses is your loans receivable, the one with the Black Moose LLC. And then further down the page, the other note with Skew Brewing. And then if you follow along to the next page, another smaller note with Skew Brewing and Black River Valley Natural, and then a new note with Snow Ridge. So you have all those loans receivable in place. And then what we do, what management does is they calculate based on a system, allowance for loan loss in case any of these, you have any losses on these. And that runs about $28,000 or about 7% of that total. And then we split it out on the balance sheet, current portion and long-term portion that you expect to receive. 2 of those smaller notes are RBEG and micro notes. So that's why you see the restricted assets at $8,000 and then the rest of the non-current at $318,000. Further along on the next page, on the very next page, you can see what those principal future maturities are going to be over the next 5 years. And so that totals up to the $400,000. And then again, we continue on in this note with some more credit quality information at the bottom of this page. And then if you follow along to the next page, note 5, that would be for the room here, page 26. Here we show what loans are in the watch category, satisfactory, and then where they are as far as an aging. So most of your loans receivable are current at $243,000. There are some greater than 90 days that are still due of about $158,000. And then following along to the next page, the very next page, we have a new note, other receivables, note 6. So this is what I was talking about earlier with that prior period adjustment. So, based on all the information and that how the agreements are written now, we determined that we should record a receivable, recognize it all up front at the signing of those agreements. So we recorded the Roaring Brook, the Flat Rock, and then this year we had the 3-Wind coming on to the book. So you have about 1.3 million in those other receivables, and you have scheduled payments when you'll receive those. And you'll see that on The next page. So other receivables is continued. These are the amounts that you expect to see coming in over the next 4 years, so. Down below at the bottom of the page, we have a restricted net position, note 8. And what this is the cash that's held in the micro enterprise loan fund and the RBEG, or the Rural Business Enterprise Loan Fund, the USDA fund. And then over on the next page, we have some more information. Note 11, operating lease. This is your operating lease for your office space. Again, this will change next year when you implement the new GASB standard. And then on the last note 13, it starts on the next page. We enhanced this a little bit more. I sent copies over to Cheyenne and Brittany yesterday just to give a little bit more explanation. So the paper copy in front of you has that. So again, based on accounting knowledge and reading through those agreements, attorneys from Hogs, I'm gonna butcher this name, I know Ross, yes. They provided some feedback, so yes, we are recording these when they're signed unless we find something different in those agreements. So you had your net position at the beginning of the year, about 3 million. What we did is we added on the 737,000 for those agreements that were in place, the Roaring Brook and the Flat Rock last year. And then instead of just recognizing it annually, we recognized it upfront when it's earned and when it should be recognized. So you'll still see the cash come in each year, but we just had an accounting change. And then the next page, this is another report. And this is very important because here in this report, it's not an opinion report, but if you had any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, they would be reported in this report. And I'm pleased to provide you today with the information that you did not have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses or compliance issues. So it's a very clean government auditing standards report. And then the very last page of this, there's an investment report. So the Authority's Budget Office asked us to add this to all of our IDA clients a few years ago, and about 3 or 4, probably more like 4 years ago, just to say you don't have any investments. If you had investments, significant equity type investments or anything of that nature, we would have to have a slightly different report there in the report. So that concludes the financial statements. I do have 2 other letters with me. And you should have those, they're stapled separately. The communication letter, that's stapled and it's about 4 pages and it starts on the front page with significant audit matters. This is a letter to the board, and what this would be an opportunity if we ran into some significant difficulties with the audit, disagreements with accounting policies and procedures with management, or that we had to implement any new accounting standards. We did not have any of those items. On the very last page, we had 2 material type adjustments we had to make. One was to just reclassify the net retained earnings on the QuickBooks between the restricted net position and the capital assets. And then the other was to record that revenue and receivable for the number 3 wind pilot. Cheyenne does have the complete set of journal entries. There were 8 in total, including the prior period adjustments, and it's just some smaller items. So that's really good. To have that few journal entries, speaks volumes. I have some clients that were running, 15-20 entries. So, that's good. It means that the internal reporting you're receiving can be very close to what your draft financials should be. So in this case, we do have some significant adjustments here, but that's just based on the new accounting. But rest assured, few journal entries is always a good thing. The last report here, letter, is a draft management letter. And this is just to, we notice as the salaries are increasing and you're expanding, we should start accruing for what we call compensated absences. That's paid time off earned So at the end of the year, starting next year, it is not material right now, so we did not record an adjustment for it, but I can see that turning into more of a material item. So we just have to make sure on the balance sheet that we record that liability for the accrued paid time off that someone could carry over or be paid if they left the organization. So very minor housekeeping type comment and suggestion. That's basically the financial statements. Questions?
The question was, and maybe Shane can answer this, but on our audit, how come we commingle our micro enterprise loans with our installment sales? Because technically, the IDA cannot make loans,
Right.
but it kind of looks like the micro enterprise loan is coming in as like IDA revenue, and then the installment sales are called loans.
Right, I mean, we could refer to it as something different. So in that note, it details that, and I can tell you what page that is. It does detail that out, that these are, let me just find the page for it.
Funds.
Yep, and it's right in here. We made sure we did this based on another IDA that has
Okay.
similar type things.
Yeah.
I just have to find the page. It would be, Brittany, on your paper copy, it would be page 23. So what that is, it details your regular mortgage receivable for some installment lease receivables. And then the second and third paragraph detail what the amount is for the micro enterprise loan fund and the USDA RBAC loan. So those amounts have decreased quite a bit over the years, but. And then for ease of financial reporting purposes, we just combined it all into one number on the balance sheet, but here on this page, it does detail the 3 different types, so. And actually, one other thing to that, Brittany, is on the balance sheet itself, it is segregated under restricted assets, so that $8,228 is separated, so, okay. Perfect. Good question. Questions? Right, for quite a bit of information.
Not really number 4, but interest, but maybe we can't discuss this because it's a big discussion. But I was trying to make the watch loans and satisfactory loans match up with the list of loans that were in here previously. And I can't tell, can't make it match up the numbers. So,
Previously, because we set aside a portion of what we call watch,
okay, so.
depending on how much we're watching it,
Okay, so.
how closely we're watching it.
Right, so, okay, so part of the loans being watched is not all of it, so, right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Based on-
watching the one entity, they have 3 different, they have loans, they have lease, and they have, equipment installment sale with us, so it's 3 different pools of money. And then, we have to, I think we ended up saying that they're in level 1 watch or whatever. And so we assign a percentage of their totals in each of those buckets that we are saying could possibly be not, so we're looking for. Yeah.
It mentioned some numbers under the watch list, and then we have the loans themselves previously, and I couldn't make the numbers.
Okay,
I
so,
understand it now. Looking at note 5.
So based on the level of risk we assign them, it's a percentage of
Right.
the amount
The
owed.
entire loan, right, okay, that's what's confusing.
actually, I can provide more information on that too. I can see where that's confusing, because when I review it, it's confusing. So, so on your paper copy, page 24, so, there are, at the top of the page, there's $9,300 there. Let's take that one for example. So that's the full amount. And then as you continue down that page, you'll see an allowance for loan loss, and that's what Cheyenne was referring to. So we take all of your portfolio and we assign a risk assessment, basically, for lack of better words. We say, this is a watch one, so we might record a reserve or an allowance for 10% or whatever. And then down below that, there's less current portion too. So those numbers at the top of the page, on page 24, are the full amount. And then you have to deduct out your allowance and current portion. So if you follow over to page 26, when you're looking at those amounts, like the 4,808 and the 4,492, those are net of that allowance. So it's not going to, that's the 9,300 minus that reserve, okay? So that's why it's the numbers, you can't tie it dollar for dollar, because you have to take that 9,300 and take out your allowance, your reserve portion here. So this is a full amount plus that, and then these numbers on page 26 are net of all of those allowances. Does that make sense, Shane? Okay. Okay, that's that. So that's why it's not. Other way we could present it is that put the full amount there and then put like a line with the reserve underneath it. You see what I mean?
Well, it also doesn't help that 9,300 is split out.
Right.
As 14.5 out of 29.5 of it is USDA, and 15
Right.
out of 29.5 is RBEC
Right. So
or micro. So yeah, it just, the numbers are right, they're just confusing.
Right, totals come out, and I agree with the question is, based on your knowledge of other IDAs and things like that, it seems pretty good. We have a low number, we have a
Yes.
high percentage of satisfactory and fairly low number of watch and no.
Right.
So are we doing okay?
yes, in your watch category, you do have smaller, the two ones that we're referring to. And then also the other one, there's one here that I believe has been under a lot of, yes, they're all related to same organization. So yes, I would say, that your satisfactory column is higher than your watch column, so that's always a good sign. And this watch column is all related to one entity, so not several entities.
Good questions. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Liz, and congratulations to the staff.
Yes.
And thank you, Janelle.
Yes.
And thanks, Janelle.
Just want to thank Cheyenne and Brittany for their assistance in providing the information, for working with us through the questions during the audit. As always, we appreciate your help with everything. And if you have any questions, just let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we turn these back into you because they're drafts, so we can.
It's up to you. They're drafts, they're marked as such, and then what we'll do is we'll have the final copy, we'll have an electronic version that management needs, and then provide a couple of paper copies. So that's up to you. You can keep it because it's marked draft, you can keep it. So yes.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Very helpful.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you, everyone.
you're welcome to stay. So. I don't know why you would.
We have lots of work back in the office, so
I'm sure you do.
thank you.
All right.
Have a good day, Liz.
Yes, you too, thanks.
So then
You too.
We need a motion to draft, so don't we have any comments on changes. And then we'll take it to a final, get it submitted.
all right, so a motion to approve the draft audit presented by Bauer and Company.
I'll make a motion.
Third, second, Tom, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries, thank you.
Amazing how quick the year goes by. Bring your. Yeah, thank you, Shy.
I know the questions they have to ask, it's like, I don't even want to tell you the answer to this, I can't imagine doing it for multiple entities.
All right, so the final item for approval was related to the CDBG microenterprise loan fund that we established.
Yeah.
spring.
So this is a sub-recipient agreement between the IDA and the county for the CDBG Microenterprise Grant Program, otherwise known as the Launch LC program that we've been marketing and working through this past year. This was something that I missed. So this is a retroactive approval. I was looking through old meeting minutes from 2019 and saw that we approved entering into a contract with the county to administer these funds on behalf of the county. And this is something that I just missed and we should have done this spring. So this contract was signed on March 7th by Joe and Larry Dahlhoff, chairman of the Board of Legislators. And it, again, basically is just stating that Lewis County is the applicant for the 200,000 that we are awarding to microenterprises, and we're just administering that program on behalf of the county. So we should approve entering into agreement with the county to administer those funds. Again, we haven't dispersed any of those funds. We're in the process of signing contracts with the businesses that we awarded and getting all the necessary paperwork into the state so that they can start their projects and receive their grants. Any questions? We're just looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the sub-recipient agreement made by Darlene. Second.
I'll second.
Third, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the executive director's report.
All right, really, the main thing I want to highlight is that we are in the middle of grant season with New York State. So this last Friday, was the first round of like New York State CFA grants that were due for various programs. We assisted Turin Highlands Lodge with a CFA grant that would hopefully provide 20% of their total project cost. They should hear sometime this fall whether or not they were awarded. Additionally, the state has come out with a number of other programs, including the DRI, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, in which the Village of Belleville plans to apply for another 10 million. This will be the third time that they're submitting an application. And this is the Downtown Drinks and Dreams event that Keely planned for us to bring the downtown business owners together to do some visioning for that application. So we are working with the village and with the planning department to get that application together for submission by the end of September. There's also a new, almost like a mini DRI program that the state came out with called the New York Forward Program. It's for smaller villages like the Lions Falls, Copenhagen, Crogans, Harrisville. These are the perfect types of applicants for this program. So we are hopefully submitting a letter of intent for a couple of municipalities to apply for $2 to $4 million to enhance their downtown. And then additionally, the state just came back out with the Restore New York Grant Fund, which is a fund that will help revitalize or demolish vacant or condemned buildings within various municipalities. So we're doing a lot of outreach to municipalities to make them aware of that program. The municipality has to be the applicant on behalf of the building owner. So we do have a couple of properties in mind, and hopefully we'll be able to submit applications for those. So of course, the state comes out with these programs all at the same time. Everyone's around the state is going crazy because they're trying to get their letters of intent in and get their applications going. But that's a lot of what we're working on this past month and in the upcoming month.
I have a question about
Yeah.
that. You talk about like getting the applications in with those municipalities.
Yeah.
What ownership does the municipality have to? They have to be part of that, I know, or don't they if they're partnering with the IDA? Is there like two different
What
flavors to
program?
those? The the
New York
Restore New York
Restore New York?
So the IDA is actually not involved.
Yeah.
in the Restore New York.
Right.
We're just trying to get information out there and get municipalities
Okay,
thinking about.
Because I heard you say something about like getting, in order for us to get the application in, that's where I was
And
confused.
we often help with those applications.
Okay,
Yeah,
So it's a
got it.
technical assistance.
Yeah.
So if the municipality wanted to be proactive in terms of, not just getting the word out, but like as, I don't know, like, there's no action that they have to take. It really takes the entities that are interested to partner with.
yeah.
But what is the recommendation, and maybe we can take this offline if it's not appropriate for the whole meeting, but like, how does a municipality position that through awareness to their community? Is there any, it's not really a resolution that we're passing? How do we get this out there to our minutes, to our?
Yeah, that's where we're coming in to first make sure that the municipalities are aware of the program and understand the program. But we also need the help of the municipalities to like think about their communities and like what building owners are motivated to do something, and could there be a partnership? So could you, as town councilwoman, reach out to a building owner that you have in your mind to potentially partner on a grant application?
Yeah, that's where this application process is kind of nice because it does take it to the local level where hopefully the representatives of the towns or villages know their building owners, or at least know which buildings are vacant, right? You can start there and then know which building owners might be motivated to do something and can do more specific outreach than,
Well,
at the county level.
Yeah, and oftentimes, the building owners are coming back to us to ask questions about the program as well as the municipalities, because, we
have a
are,
staff.
we have a staff, we can help, and we understand the programs. And so that's where the municipalities and building owners can lean on us to help with
That August 10th is for the initial letter of intent.
Yep.
But do I understand that there may be an opportunity for a second letter of intent in that round?
There's
So
three
still having,
rounds.
because it's impossible and most of the meetings aren't until
Right.
later in August, so.
Right, and you don't need board approval to submit the letter of intent, but there is a resolution that you would need to pass to submit the application.
Okay, that's important to know.
Yes,
We
yeah,
were under the understanding that we had to have a special meeting if we had one to submit by August 10th.
right, and that's crazy.
Okay.
I mean, and that's
The
the thing,
timeline definitely is kind of crazy.
the timeline is crazy, yes. Yeah, with Restore New York, DRI, and New York Forward, like the letters of intent are due next week, and they just released the information like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's everyone around the state is just going crazy right now.
On the demoing condemned buildings, is that possible to be retroactive or is?
No, no,
Right, and the program does, I put together a template yesterday, and this is maybe a little bit more into the weeds than we need to get, but I put together a template yesterday based on Lions Falls School, for example. Because you get a certain number of dollars per square foot for demo for a commercial building, and certain number of dollars per square foot for reconstruction, and if there's asbestos lead in what portion of the state you're in. So I threw it into Excel so that we could, when we have an example,
That would
be able to
good.
evaluate it pretty quickly,
I was thinking of Red Block and Turin, but
right?
right.
it looks a lot better now than it's
Yeah.
going.
So definitely, the program definitely provides more money for a reconstruction than it does for a straight up demo, I think, based on just some assumptions, it was like $600,000 for the demo of the school versus, you know, the full 2 million for reconstruction into a commercial space. And then it's different if you're reconstructing into a residential space.
Based on what you understand, something like that, the building in Turin, that would, there's still a village of Turin, right? Yeah, there's a village of Turin. The village, if there is a village municipality, it would override a town, or could a town submit on behalf of property that falls within the village? I don't want to take up all the meeting
I
time.
mean,
but-
I think the county can apply, so, I mean, I would assume.
Yeah, and then
county-
the county picked up most of cleaning that mess up.
Yeah, so you could apply to Restore New York or reconstructing.
Or if it's both entities apply and get twice the money.
So like,
I don't think.
if the town of Denmark applied for,
Something in the village of Copenhagen.
yeah, I'll ask the question.
Thank you.
I think this, as we think about our structure and everything and the conversations we've been having, this brings up the role in our contract with the county to be technical assistance and economic development for the county, right? And these are the type of, this is the type of work, and, you know, the reason we've tried to build the staff we have is because we're contracted with the county beyond our role as an IDA to provide economic development services and this sort of technical support, where it's not a project we're actually the grant applicant on or something, but we're providing that, you know, the marketing, the education, the, you know, technical assistance on putting in an application is exactly what we're, you know, being tasked to do with that agreement. And you know, the reason we need the group we have, and, you know, we continue to look at how we structure that for going forward. All right,
Questions?
I have one question on that. What is the Turin Island Lodge?
Yep, so that is a new construction project, slated to start this coming spring. It's a six-room lodge, in the village of Turin. The rooms are gonna be like, they're gonna have little kitchenettes, more of a long-term rental, not just, a bed and a microwave and a mini fridge. They're gonna have the full kitchenette and like laundry service. So just a new project that's up and coming.
That's part of the golf course, right?
No,
No?
this is separate.
That was my question, really. So that was the old name of the golf course, and so I was.
Right.
It's just, I mean, don't think I knew lodge on the
Yeah,
golf
it's
course.
on the west road, down the road from Snow Ridge.
I get confused which project we're approving.
Mahar, is her family is Bonnie Mahar's mom.
Yep. You know, the Mahars. Bonnie Mahar, that family. So yeah, it's exciting, and there's actually a number of lodging projects happening in Turin. You know, some like little cabin projects. But this one is a little bit larger, so we're helping her. Again, with the CFA, she received a micro enterprise launch Lewis County grant. She'll be submitting a pilot application. So, again, just a good project, good thing for the county, good thing for tourism. Not associated with golf.
Nothing to do with golf, that's all.
Just one other update on the 501c3. We are putting out a press release, hopefully within the next couple of days, not by the end of the week. That we're exploring the feasibility of this future partnership. And then we have a link to a page on our website with a survey. And this is where we're trying to gather feedback from the community and chamber members on this future partnership. So that will be, we'll launch that by the end of the week. And after talking with Kristen, we do plan to have that 3-door presentation mid to end of September. We just are pushing it back because of vacations. And this is very hectic and busy. Did talk with Kevin about starting the process to create the 501c3, and he stated that to get from point A to having the 501c3 created, it's going to take 6 to 9 months. 6, hopefully. But we just don't really know what the timeline is. So we're starting that process. Any other questions on the report?
Great, thank you. Correspondence.
We did, just yesterday, I got an email from Roaring Brook Wind with their commercial operation date documentation, so they are considered operational at this point, so that all their pilot stuff that was continued on that will go into effect finally. They did offer a tour, possibly, sort of. If anybody's interested.
Definitely. They're really cool.
What's that?
Can we go inside?
I don't know, I'm pretty determined to get one of these people to make mine one, but. And energy's back
You mean
on.
ride up?
What's that?
You mean ride up, there's no climbing in those new ones.
Okay. Whatever, I wanna be on top.
Alright. Just take a minute.
Yep, so just under new business, we thought we'd just give some updates on a lot of things that each of us has been working on. So Jenna, we'll start with just some program updates.
Yeah, just some quick updates for you on all the programs. So Cfa Lewis County, we are at 127 entrepreneurs and small businesses that have filled out the survey and have been engaged in one way or another. We're starting to go through that list and identifying people that have either fallen off or if they're moving to the next step. So stay tuned there. We're also, now that we have this group of over 100 people and individuals in the community, we're starting to create that community of entrepreneurs. So having a couple of events, no dates yet, but I have talked to a couple of entrepreneurs that are very interested in having a coffee, like get together to talk about what they're working on and how they might collaborate. And then having some sort of speaker or topic associated with that. And then an after hours. So to kind of catch both sides of the equation, whether they're busy people in the morning or in the evenings, trying to catch both crowds there. The after hours, we're aiming for Harrisville still. I'm just trying to nail down a date. And then the coffee and connections one will most likely be Loudville to start. And then we'll start to move it around the county, and the aim there is to get the entrepreneurs involved in that process too, so they can help with some of the planning, to be the liaisons for that program too. Another piece of feedback that we got from one of the entrepreneurs, they would like to see a Facebook group for entrepreneurs so that they can have a forum to kind of bounce ideas off one another. So that's on my list of things to do. It'll be a great way for us to kind of share new things through the program, but really it's for them to bounce ideas off of each other. We are at the point where we are renewing contracts. It's been a year since we launched the program, and had our first consultants sign those contracts. So we are renewing those, making some tweaks and seeking some additional consultants as well. And we have officially received our first half of the Project C funding, which is 7,500 of the total 15,000. And that will go towards additional technical assistance and marketing of the program through the Chamber of Commerce. Any questions on DBA or very quick updates?
Two of the businesses were on
Okay.
NCPR a few weeks ago,
Yes.
on their interview
Thank you, Joe,
Sure.
for that connection. Microsoft Plastics was talking to him a couple weeks ago and he said, yeah, this guy, Joe Lawrence, got me connected with this guy at NPR and like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then we did have Liam with Cugliano mushrooms, I can't say that one, was just in an article on NNY Business magazine. And Kelpie Town Cove, she has yurts and yoga retreats in Fort Lyden. She was just in a segment with ABC 50. So we're getting some really good press coverage of the different entrepreneurs, and we've made some of those connections and some of them have been made on their own. It's just great to see these small businesses being covered in the region. So very exciting. So Launch Lewis County, we announced these last month, but just a quick update that we have met with all of them to sign contracts. We are working through some environmental questions with the state regarding construction projects. But there's only really 2 that fall into that category, so most of them will move fairly quickly. As far as purchasing equipment and inventory and things. And then through the program, they also receive, if they don't already have, logos. We have a photographer, Austin Bird Photography is going to do photography for us for all of these award winners once the projects are complete. So we'll have a good library of photos by next June to really market the next segment of this program. And to give them some good content for their websites and social media as well.
And just to add, once we disperse 80% of these funds, we can reapply. So we plan on reapplying to New York State for $300,000 because they've increased the amount we can apply for.
And the program is set to wrap up by June of next year. So we're not anticipating any that we are going to need extensions on at this point. So we should have 9 new businesses or expanded businesses by next June, which is super exciting.
Is there a limit, or is there like a deadline for that 300,000? You said you have to spend 80 to apply for the 300. Is there a deadline?
That is a rolling application, so we can apply whenever, which is handy.
We've learned a lot through this, the rebranding of this program, and some things we will do and won't do next time around. With supporting them through their application and the entrepreneurial training course and so on and so forth. So I think the next round will be even better than this round has been. And lastly, we haven't talked about this program in a while. It's our Center for Businesses in Transition, just to refresh, or maybe some of you haven't heard about it before. This is through ANCA, the Adirondack North Country Association. They cover a 14-county region in the North Country. I am the liaison for Lewis County for this program, and what it aims to do is help businesses that are looking to retire or transition, make that transition to either a family member, an employee, or sell on the public market. Those are, or to a worker cooperative. There's really 4 ways of doing that. Exciting news, we have one business that's also part of the Launch Lewis County program that is in transition right now. A little hint from the picture, but it's not yet public yet. So a new downtown business moving in and taking over, and that should be happening within the next couple of months. It's been a long process. And then we are working with that group of liaisons on a fall sellers working group. And what that is education for other businesses that are looking to transition, support and creating that, again, community. So if there's 2 or 3 businesses that can bounce some ideas off of one another, We have a handful that have been looking to transition for, since the program started, right, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So a little bit of motivation to take them to the next level, helping them with their valuation and getting them for sale publicly is the ultimate goal there. And this is new through that program. A lot of what we've done is resource-based and very individualized. The new grant that they have through the USDA, this idea of creating working groups within the different counties came up and was thought to be more effective than just getting resources out there. So I'm looking forward to planning and executing this by the end of the year. Any questions on that?
Excellent.
All right. More finance. You guys sick of it yet? I included our loan fund status report in your packet, just because we haven't had a finance committee meeting and I wanted to put that out there. It's not really anything hugely notable, besides the fact that we have a fair amount of loan funds available. So since this report, we've collected another $12,000. So we're up to about $185,000 available. Knock that down by the $25,000 that we kind of need to earmark for Tuckahoe Roasters if they ever decide that they want to move forward with their loan that we approved 6 months ago, probably. So there's a fair amount there. It's just hasn't been utilized. We've had a lot more payoffs between Osceola and Harbor Care than we have anybody really seriously interested in our loan fund. So that's something that I think we will want to talk to you guys about a bit in the future. The USDA pot of money is a little more restricted, but the county funds, we're in an agreement with the county as to the guidelines for that fund. And right now, there's a job retention or a job creation aspect of that. There's also the interest rate is set as prime +1 to prime +3 and capped at $25,000 loans. And the terms are kind of laid out and they're not super restricted, but we're just not seeing a lot of people who if they need a loan, that's usually more than $25,000. And especially to go through the whole, 3-month process with us and another application when they're already trying to fill out bank applications. So trying to look at, especially with the grant funds that we know are available, including the CDBG, BPR, Facade, a lot of those programs, banks aren't as willing as we thought to provide bridge loans. So to provide upfront financing so that they can get the project done so they can be reimbursed by the grant. We thought those loans would be kind of no-brainers, but banks aren't as willing to do that as we expected. So if we can kind of modify the terms and let the county know that, we want to provide, for example, 0% interest for the first 6 months. And that allows a business to hopefully complete their project and at least be in the process of getting grant reimbursement before they have to start paying interest on our loan. We're not earning any interest really on these pots of money because of the way our funds all have to be collateralized. We earn like 0.01% interest on any of our bank accounts. So it's not like we're taking a huge loss by giving them the grace period before they have to pay interest. Things like that might get more interest in these loan funds and help us utilize them and then maybe grow them as well. So just things that we started talking about, and probably our next finance committee will have some suggestions as to how we might tweak those funds.
And as an example, one of our Launch Lewis County recipients went to the bank to try to get a bridge loan to pay for everything up front. Had the award letter in place that was going to reimburse most of that loan, but they denied him because of his credit score. So can we come in and fill that gap? Provide that service, revamp our guidelines a little bit to meet the needs
of our entrepreneurs. And on this report, I said we've collected about 12,000 since this report was published. That's a big check from Stewed Brewing, and that brings them current. That's just kind of how they pay. They wait a couple months and then they get caught up. And so that was the one that was on our watch list from the loan fund committee. And also that's why we kind of accumulate some allowance on our financials is for that particular customer. And they just happen to have three different arrangements with us. But they always catch up, so I'm not super worried about them. Hopefully we'll see that Black Moose mortgage paid off as well in the coming months. But everybody else is in great shape. We just need to get that loan fund figured out so that we are loaning more and then collecting more. Any questions on the loan fund? I do think Chris Canada alluded to it when he was talking. We have 4 different solar pilots, 3 that are in kind of meeting contracts signed and to get paid, and 1 kind of in process. So we'll be collecting on those in the next 6 to 12 months on all of those for our admin fee. So pilots are coming along. Turin Highlands has submitted an application. There's another solar application that we'll have on a finance committee meeting for this month for the Damagala solar project. That Tom's aware of it. It's kind of your end of the county. We've been hearing about this one for forever, and finally a developer came in and started talking about that one and submitted an application. So not a huge influx this year, but a few coming in. We were talking just this morning, and it's been something that's been on my mind. We've been kind of working with some small businesses, and where it's appropriate, we suggest that we could provide a pilot incentive to them. Some of the projects really aren't big enough, so we haven't utilized the traditional pilot a ton. But I think with some of these upcoming projects and the different levels of financing that are going to be available to certain projects, I think we're looking at putting together an incentive package to really go out and try to market a couple properties or concepts. And I think we'll flesh that out a little bit more, but just, do you have time for me to do just a quick exercise? So I was thinking about the Lions Hall School in particular. We don't have a super. We haven't, it's honestly, it's not even in anybody's ownership that we can do anything yet, but just as an example and to talk about how we would structure something like this with the current buckets of money. If the county could foreclose on that property, we could give it to somebody. Obviously, a very vetted, they have a plan and it fits in line with what we're looking for. We can stack that with a pilot, and pilots obviously speak more to cash flow for the life of the project, not necessarily for upfront purchase or improvements. Sales tax exemptions. Mortgage recording tax exemption. That's a small one. That's kind of a side note on a lot of the incentive applications. If you're applying for the other ones, you may as well get that 0.07% exemption. Work with them to get a Restore New York grant. So again, that can be up to $2 million. Vacant property revitalization, a lot of the projects we would have in mind. So that could be another 100,000. An IDA loan, which isn't huge, but as we think about tweaking interest rates on that or having a grace period, it's something that we partner with the North Country Alliance. And they have loan funds or Development Authority of the North Country. That could be as much as another 250,000. That becomes a really inclusive package that I think could get a project done. And if we have a use in mind, like we want lodging or we want low-income housing or something, being able to put these things together, especially these two elements that we haven't had in the past, I think becomes more and more attractive to a developer or even hopefully a small, like the little guys that want to do a project, if we can help them through, you know, the business plan and development plan. So I think that's a project that I'm excited about. And as we target a couple properties or a couple concepts, trying to get somebody else excited about as well. Questions, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a great concept. That's something that I've heard at like conferences in the past, like stop being reactive to projects, be proactive and have the solution already in place for developers or for businesses. And this is providing that solution.
How do you market this to, I mean, you talk about, vetted candidates for this. Is it based on like previous interactions with individuals that are, or companies that are looking to do this, or do you openly market it? How?
I think we could openly market it. I think we have some developer contacts who we've never really come in front of them with a package and said, will you do this, like this specific thing? And I think that's just at a board level, I'm not even sure it's this board necessarily, it's probably more LCDC board. But saying, you know, we want you to do this specific thing. A lot of the times in the past, we've been kind of wishy-washy on we want somebody to come do something. If we can be more decisive and more specific, I think that's where we can connect to the right people.
And then the zero for property, you said this example is Lions Falls School,
Right, and that's,
which
that's
is not in, like, it's not in the hands of South Louis anymore, it's in the county.
It's in foreclosure. The county could foreclose on it at any
But not in
point.
foreclosure as is the school owns it, another individual
Right.
purchased it, okay, just want to make sure I
Yeah,
understood.
many years ago.
Okay.
I like your plan, but has anybody actually been in that building recently at all?
I have never been in that building.
Yeah. We've just, I guess, restarted these conversations
Well,
with the
I
school.
mean, there's a squatter living there.
I'm told that he's not.
Well, maybe he's moved out.
Yeah,
Very recent, but he has been
Yeah.
for the last 10, 15 years.
I think he moved out.
Could be.
Wow.
I know that one of the main problems with that building is the asbestos.
Yeah, and that's where the Restore New York helps, because they have a substantial allowance for monies for that. So if we can start thinking about looking at a strategic plan for economic development, but then also thinking about, okay, what's the thing that we're ready to pull the trigger on?
And we'll get into that a little bit with Commerce Park in executive session, but something that Cheyenne and I talked about, and Joe and I, a little bit like just at a board level. Here are the resources that we have available. Where do we want to put our efforts when it comes to property development and redevelopments? Like, is it more that, the technical assistance and the services that we can offer in marketing the properties, or should we take ownership of some of these properties to help make something happen? So this conversation we will have in the future.
Good stuff, thank you.
Thank you. All right, just some marketing updates quickly. One of our priorities for this year in our strategic plan was to do a brand audit or a brand refresh, brand refocus. We called it a million different things. But we worked with Novel Marketing Co. She's a consultant with DBA to really help us streamline and clarify the Naturally Lewis brand and where we want to take it in the future, and just to make sure that we're utilizing our resources most effectively. We're promoting all the things that we should be promoting. You know, we launched the brand over 6 years ago now. And so we just thought it was a good time to like take a step back and make sure that we were on the right path. And this is what came out of those sessions with Hannah. Herb took part in a session with Hannah, and it was just a really great refocus for the brand. Herb is one of our ideal clients. So we just identified like who are our ideal clients, who are we trying to market to, what are the colors we need to use in our marketing, the fonts, the brand vision, like the wording we should be using. And we did a little bit of a refresh on our logos. And then with this process, we brought in the Adirondacks Tug Hill brand, which is the tourism brand that's currently housed under the chamber. As we think about the future partnership, we just thought it was a great thing to bring in the Adirondacks Tug Hill brand and make sure we understand how to use those two brands together. So it's a really cool process. And I think what is really neat and what has come out of this is that for 6 years, we've been trying to come up with the content to promote through Naturally Lewis, and we're now at the point where DBA clients and the community is starting to tell the story about Naturally Lewis and why you should live here, work here, build business here. So marketing has almost become easier to do. It's less of us trying to come up with the content, but more of letting the people who live, work, and build business here tell the story for us, which has been the ultimate goal all along. Like, instead of us saying, you need to do this, you need to be here, it's the people who are telling that story, which I think is really great. So from this, we kind of identified what type of content we wanted to create. And so we hired Olivia Grant Creative, a videographer, who did a number of interviews at our conference. And we just wanted to share a couple of those videos. They're really great and just really inspiring, and really tell the story that we want to.
Hi, I'm Heather Pleskotch. I'm the founder of Greet on Leafy, a subscription greeting card service. Lewis County has supported my innovative business through Naturally Lewis's DBA program. They offer a lot of help with me financially, as well as a sounding board for ideas. My business is not necessarily rooted as a physical storefront or anything like that. It's all e-commerce, and it's different than what's normally out there, and different than what's in even this area, let alone countrywide. But that hasn't stopped them from helping me because I'm a Lewis County resident and native. When I work with the Naturally Lewis team and the partners that they have to help expand their services, it feels like an extension of my business. So I'm a, founder of a small business. It's essentially just me. I have the support of family and friends and whatnot, but when it comes to every aspect of my business, that's on me. So having Naturally Lewis, their DBA program, and their partners help me with the initiatives that I'm trying to accomplish and get up and going makes it feel like I have a whole team behind me. Lewis County is the natural choice for me. I was born and raised here. Both my parents actually chose here. They were not Lewis County residents. Both my parents actually came from different parts of New York State, and they happened to find their home here in Lewis County. I was born here. I was raised here. I love it here. My family's here. My children here are here. It makes me emotional being here.
And then
It's a shame to think. My name is Craig McNamara. I'm a retired military officer. I retired in 2011, and I've lived in the North Country area for the last 12 years, and been really, really thankful that we've been able to grow our family here, educate our children, and be part of this community. I think what would bring military families and soldiers to the Lewis County area is obviously their natural resources, right? But that's a known variable for our soldiers. So if you come down on a new set of orders and you say, hey, I'm going to Fort Drum, generally what you're going to hear is Fort Drum's amazing. You're going to love it. It's great for fishing and hunting. But if you don't fish or hunt, then you're kind of like, oh, all this snow and, you know, and I don't fish and hunt. So what am I going to do? But there's so many other things to do here. And it's really a matter of making things welcoming to the soldiers. Invite the soldiers down, invite the families down, military families with young children, find these communities safe and welcoming. And, you know, and it's a shame if they come here and they live in our communities, but they never really take part in the things we do, right? So having spent 25 years in the Army, I feel comfortable saying the things we do because after 12 years, I am a North Country, you know, native now. This is where I live. This is where I raised my family. This is where I am, and it works for me. And how do you make that work for other military families and veterans? And the way you do that is by being open and allowing our soldiers the opportunity to participate in the things that are going on in Lewis County. And there are so many things, from vineyards to skiing to any number of activities that military families and veterans want to be a part of. So find a way to make a connection with soldiers, not just Fort Drum, the big giant entity, but with the individuals, the beating hearts that live on Fort Drum, and bring them to your community. And if you can do that, you'll have more of me's and more of other people that are veterans that retire in this area and become, you know, invested in what we do and how we do it. And it feels great to say we. I'm a military retired veteran. I served 25 years in the military, and my family and myself moved back to the area. And Lewis County is a natural choice.
So there are a few more, but it's great because Heather is telling the community what we can offer small businesses, right? And then Craig, what he is saying is what we've been trying to tell businesses for so long, like we need to take advantage of Fort Drum. We need to be marketing more to Fort Drum families. And then you have a military, retired military who's telling a story for us. So really great stuff happening. We plan to continue to work with Olivia. Okay.
Yeah.
Just on other content creation, she did a promo video for Food Truck Fridays, which was really cool. So a lot of good stuff happening in the marketing world. And of course, thanks to Kaylee, she has done practically all of our marketing this summer, and is doing a great job with it. So any questions, thoughts on that?
We'll be putting out the rest of the videos on social media over the next couple weeks, right?
Yeah.
It's putting out like one a week. They're getting some, well, the first one got some good traction already, so.
Should be good.
Thank you. All right, so now we do have one last item, and that's related to the ongoing contract negotiation, potential contract negotiations with the business park property we've been looking at across from the hospital. And because of the subject matter with the negotiations, we would look for a motion to go into executive session to continue that discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Darlene, second. Guy, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. We're now in executive session. All right, we're out of executive session. No actions are being taken. Staff will continue to work with the entities involved in the property. And with that, if there's no other business, we can look to adjourn the meeting.
Make that motion to adjourn.
Darlene, motion to adjourn the meeting. Second.
I'll second.
Herb, seconded by Herb, all in favor?